Ethan Whitmore's voice cracked like a whip through the marble halls of his mansion, sharp and venomous. "Did you really think someone like you could touch my daughter's things?" His piercing blue eyes burned with contempt as he towered over the cleaning lady, standing frozen in the doorway of his 6-year-old daughter's bedroom. Tanya Brooks, 32, clutched the porcelain doll carefully in her hands, her posture steady despite her racing pulse. She had picked it up from the floor only seconds earlier, but to Ethan, it was an unforgivable offense. "Sir, I was just," she began softly, only to be cut off by his growl. "Shut up. People like you always have excuses." The words landed like knives. Tanya had been at the mansion for just 2 weeks, the 11th woman of color hired, and then abruptly dismissed within 6 months. She had already noticed the disturbing pattern. Only Black or Latino women seemed to be fired, always accused of violations that magically never applied to their white counterparts. And every single one of them had left in tears. But Tanya wasn't like the others. Raised by a grandmother who had endured decades of domestic work under racism disguised as tradition, she recognized the scent of prejudice as clearly as bleach. For 2 weeks, she had quietly gathered evidence, recordings of Ethan's biting remarks, photos of discriminatory rules, even screenshots of messages he'd sent to his secretary about what kind of appropriate staff should work in his home. Now Ethan stood inches from her, his 6-foot frame casting a shadow over her. "Pack your things and get out. No references. No second chances." Tanya nodded, placing the doll gently back on the shelf with exaggerated care. "I understand perfectly, Mr. Whitmore." Her calm tone startled him, but she turned and walked away without another word. Passing by another doorway, she caught the eyes of little Emily. The bald child, her head wrapped in a loose scarf after months of chemotherapy, sat on the carpet surrounded by hairless dolls. She looked up with wide, lonely eyes and offered Tanya the faintest smile, a child's silent plea for kindness. For a moment, Tanya's heart broke, but she smiled back, her mind already racing ahead. Ethan didn't notice the glance, too busy basking in what he thought was another victory. He also didn't notice the small recorder tucked inside Tanya's blouse, capturing every venomous word, nor the quiet determination on her face. He thought he'd won, but he had just declared war on the wrong woman. That night, in her cramped kitchen, Tanya sat at her laptop, transcribing Ethan's insults word for word. "People like you always have excuses," she whispered, typing the damning line into her growing file of evidence. 11 recordings, countless photos, and even a folder of incriminating emails she'd discovered on his desk. She named the project Operation Honor. When her phone rang, it was Maria Alvarez, a Latina cleaner Ethan had fired weeks before. "He let you go too, huh?" Maria sighed. "I told you, he treats us like garbage. But funny how the blonde before me broke dishes and scratched his car still kept her job." Tanya gritted her teeth. She'd heard that story before. White women made mistakes and were forgiven. Women of color made none and were still cast out. She opened her drawer and pulled out an old photograph of her grandmother in a maid's uniform, 1962. On the back, in careful handwriting, "Never bow your head to those who think they're above you. Dignity cannot be sold." Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Smart women don't fight like dogs in the street. They gather the stones, then build the wall that brings the oppressor down." Tanya smiled faintly. Grandma would be proud of the castle she was building now. Over the next week, Tanya dug deeper. She found a private network of wealthy employers, including Ethan, who shared blacklists of troublesome, workers-coded language for women of color who dared to ask for fair treatment. In one group chat, Ethan had written, "Watch out for Tanya Brooks. Too many questions. Doesn't respect hierarchy." Another replied, "Thanks for the warning. We don't want that type near our families." The racism wasn't subtle, it was organized, and Tanya wasn't going to let it stay hidden. Her cousin, Naomi Fields, a sharp investigative reporter, agreed to help. But Tanya wanted more than a simple expose. She wanted the world to see Ethan for what he truly was, a hypocrite who cloaked his racism as protection for his daughter while emotionally abandoning the girl in her darkest hour. With Carmen Lopez, the longtime housekeeper inside the Whitmore mansion, Tanya devised her boldest move. Carmen had confided that Emily often cried, asking if new ladies would come talk to her, desperate for connection. Tanya knew what she had to do. On Saturday morning, While Ethan was at his exclusive golf club, Tanya returned to the mansion. Carmen had left the back door open. Hidden cameras sewn into Tanya's blouse recorded every step. "Emily," Carmen called softly. "There's someone here to meet you." The little girl padded down the stairs in pink pajamas, scarf slipping to reveal her bald head. Her eyes widened when she saw Tanya. "Hi, sweetheart," Tanya said gently, kneeling. "I heard you're a princess." Emily giggled shyly. "Why did Daddy say people like you can't work here?" The question sliced Tanya's heart, but she kept smiling. Sometimes grown-ups say things that don't make sense. What matters is kindness. She pulled out a golden wig, its curls catching the light. Emily gasped, tears springing to her eyes. "It's like my hair used to be. Would you like to try it on?" Tanya asked. Moments later, Emily twirled in front of a mirror, beaming. "It's me. It's really me." She danced, her laughter filling the mansion. But then, the sound of keys. Ethan had come home early. "Daddy." Emily ran to him, curls bouncing. "Look at me." Ethan froze, his face shifting from confusion to rage. "What is this woman doing here? How dare she touch my daughter?" "She made me happy," Emily said simply. "Why are you mad at someone who made me happy?" The innocence in her voice hit him harder than any argument. Tanya, steady as ever, pulled out her phone. "You want to know what I've been doing, Mr. Whitmore?" "Collecting proof." She pressed play, and his own voice filled the air. "People like you always have excuses. We don't want elements that could negatively influence our children." "What?" How Ethan stammered. Naomi stepped through the door with a news crew, cameras rolling live. "Good afternoon, Mr. Whitmore. Care to explain your hiring practices?" Panic spread across his face as the cameras captured Emily clutching Tanya's hand, still smiling in her wig. The footage hit the airwaves within hours, sparking outrage. The image of a child asking her father why kindness was wrong went viral overnight. 3 months later, Ethan's empire was in ruins. His contracts evaporated, the racist employer network dismantled by lawsuits. Emily, now living safely with Carmen, thrived with love and stability. She often visited Tanya, calling her auntie. One afternoon she showed her a drawing. 3 figures holding handsome black woman, a Latina woman, and a little girl with golden curls. "This is our family," Emily said proudly. Ethan, disgraced and alone, stared out from a small apartment window, the mansion long sold. His arrogance had cost him everything: his fortune, his power, and the love of his only child. Tanya's true triumph wasn't his destruction. It was Emily's laughter, the proof that compassion, dignity, and courage could tear down even the highest walls of prejudice. Ethan Whitmore had underestimated her, but the world would never forget the day a little girl exposed her father's hate and found love where he said it didn't belong.